Sponsored by Hollis, Wright & Couch, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our the attorneys with Josh Wright from the Hollis, Wright & Couch Law Firm and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. Appreciate you spending your Sunday evening with us. For the next 30 minutes, we will be discussing civil rights. As we do so, we would love to hear from you. Throughout the program, you'll see ways that you can call, text, or email us. That's your way to communicate with us, and we look forward to hearing from you. We're joined tonight by Tyler Vail. He's with the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch. Tyler, good to see you.
David, thank you. Great to be back.
And we have an esteemed guest with us. The set has never looked better.
That is the best way to put it. That's exactly right. We're joined tonight by the Honorable Judge U.W. Clemon, and anyone in this area I know with any kind of legal experience knows exactly who I'm talking about. But we're talking about he retired from the chief judge position of the United States District Court, Northern District, I believe in 2009.
That's correct.
Okay, and he served on the bench for approximately 30 years. So he's had quite the reputation as a judge, just such an esteemed individual, such a well-respected individual, probably one of the most respected judges in the country. But even prior to that, we'll back up a little bit further, even back to his private practice days before he was appointed by President Carter, where he was involved in probably one of it was the hottest civil rights era this country has known. And so from landmark cases he was involved in, dealing with segregation of public schools, discrimination of some of the major employment discrimination cases in the country. He was literally at the forefront of the fight. And so to have him sitting here next to us is really just a pleasure and an honor.
It's my real opportunity to be here with you gentlemen and to share some of the experiences and try to answer some of the questions you might want to put to me.
Well, we certainly we are honored to have you here, and looking forward to the next half hour. I guess first of all, from a starting point, when did your legal career begin?
My legal career started in 1968 when I graduated from Columbia Law School and came back to Alabama, took the bar exam, and started practicing in November. Actually, it was October of 1968.
So you're from Birmingham. You grew up here.
I am Birmingham through and through. The only time I've spent outside of Birmingham was the 3-year period when I was in law school.
Right.
I decided to become a lawyer early on in life at age 13. Went to Miles College, and there was involved in the civil rights agitation that led to the 1963 demonstrations here, that led to the March on Washington, that led to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And when I graduated from law school, I set about trying to implement the various provisions of the civil rights laws that had so recently been enacted by Congress. How
was it to practice law in Birmingham, Alabama in 1968, to come back here and to do that then?
Well, I could not have done it but for a fellowship that was provided by the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which enabled me to come back, start a civil rights practice. I went in with the then legendary Oscar Adams.
Wow, yeah.
And take over some of the cases that Oscar had already started, like the Jefferson County school desegregation case, and to be involved in the litigation against the United States Steel Corporation. And my salary was paid in part by the Legal Defense Fund. Otherwise, I would not have been able to start off with the bang that I did.
Right. The 3 years that you were at Columbia, did you feel as though your hometown was coming apart at the seams?
No, I felt some serenity at Columbia, because when Birmingham came apart at the seams, I was right here, in the middle of it in 1963.
Yeah.
And so in law school, I had the opportunity of working on some Birmingham cases, school desegregation, United States Steel Corporation, as a law clerk. And so when I passed the bar and started practicing, I hit the ground running.
Right, yeah, for sure. Now, for you, whenever you're here, what was those first few years like? Because you were working on legislation that now we read about in the history books. Did you have a sense of that then?
Well, I didn't have time enough to think about it. The times were so exciting and so challenging, right, because segregation was so deeply entrenched. Mm-hmm. Right. And I recall so well that in December of 1969, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which covered the southern states, mm-hmm, decreed in the Jefferson County case that the schools be desegregated at the beginning of the second semester, mm-hmm, 2 months later. And within a month period, 4 cities that were served by the county school system withdrew from the county school system to set up their own school systems. Pleasant Grove, Midfield, Homewood, and Vestavia. And we were able to convince Judge Pointer, who was a brilliant judge, right, very faithful to the law. We were able to convince him to require the city of Pleasant Grove to bus in blacks to its elementary school. And the city of Pleasant Grove decided, the city council decided that it wouldn't buy the buses. And so the judge shut down the system. Vestavia was required to import blacks, buy buses, and bus in blacks from a section of Birmingham of the county system. And that system lasted until about 2 years ago. Right, yeah. Midfield was required to bus in blacks from Brighton. Mm-hmm. And Homewood, which had the same percentage of blacks in its system as existed in the county as a whole, was not required to do anything. But those were very, very challenging days. I was threatened at the courthouse, by irate white citizens over that process. Mm.
What was your relationship with Dr. King?
I first met Dr. King in 1961 when I was a student at Morehouse College. And then in 1963, when he came back to lead the demonstrations, I was a part of that movement and acted under the directions of his lieutenants, Andy Young, who later became mayor of Atlanta, right, and Y.T. Walker, pastor, now prominent pastor in New York City. And we went into, for example, then the largest department store downtown, Pizitz, and I remember being marched out with a gun in my back after trying to drink some white water. And on another occasion, my group was assigned to go to the Birmingham Public Library and desegregate it, and that's what we did. Right. They were the most exciting days of my life. Yeah. Wow.
Heavens. Tyler, you do just kind of feel like you're sitting here with history.
You do, you know, yeah, exactly. It's amazing just sit here and listen to these stories and realize that he was truly part of what we as lawyers learned in law school and what we're still trying to carry on today. To make
well,
sure
you know, it was God's blessing that I would be around to participate in these activities.
Yeah, he certainly protected you.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
As well. Time for our first break. Fascinating evening tonight with Judge U.W. Clemon. As we head to break, a reminder, ways that you can chime in and join the conversation. You can call, text, email. Also find the firm of Hollis, Wright, and Couch. Search that term. Find them on Facebook, Hollis_Wright. Find them on Twitter. More with Judge Clemon coming up after the break.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright, and Couch, and thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never need legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to this show or related to other civil legal matters, call, email, or text us to talk with one of our lawyers. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter to learn about important legal news that could affect you or your family. Or simply contact us by going to alabamas13.com and click on the Attorneys link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and for watching The Attorneys right here on Alabama's 13.
Car
Welcome back into The Attorneys. A fascinating evening tonight, visiting with Judge U.W. Clemon and discussing civil rights history, and helping us understand that time in our country's the civil rights battles and understand that better. You can, as we continue on with this discussion, you can call, text, or email us. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Judge Clemon, first of all, can you help us understand what is a working definition for civil rights?
A civil right is a right or a privilege, usually against the government or individuals, enforceable in a court of law. And the whole concept of civil rights really goes back over 800 years. In 1215, King John of England was forced to sign the Magna Carta, which gave to barons some input into the government of England. Up to that point, the king could do no wrong, and there were no constraints on what he, as the supreme being, could do. The idea of giving some due process rights to the barons and citizens of England originated there, and they evolved over time in Great Britain. And when this country was founded, set up, it was insisted, in addition to the original provisions of the Constitution, that a Bill of Rights be included, first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They are basically civil rights that are enforceable against the federal government. When the 14th Amendment to the Constitution was adopted in 1868, then over a period of years, the right to equal opportunity, to due process of law incorporated in the 14th Amendment, reached back to embrace those rights, freedom of religion, press, jury trial and all, that are incorporated in the Bill of Rights. And so those provisions of the Bill of Rights in the original Constitution have now become applicable to the states as well as the federal government by virtue of the 14th Amendment.
You know, oftentimes the civil rights era is referred to as the 1950s and 60s, but it sounds like it goes way back.
Yes, yes. Actually, the civil rights, the first civil rights era was the time frame 1865 through 1874, and during that period of time, the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, was enacted, and the 14th Amendment, a revolutionary provision, saying, number one, that all persons born in the United States or citizens of the United States, just by virtue of birth, you're a citizen of this nation. That was a revolutionary proposition then, as it is now in some countries. And then the other part of the 14th Amendment guarantees to all citizens due process of law and the equal protection of the laws. And it's that equal protection section of the 14th Amendment which means that all citizens are entitled to equal treatment under the law. That too was a revolutionary concept, and we're still working it out.
That's exactly right. I think that's one of the things, David, is that, and you mentioned a lot of people refer to the civil rights era, and they think civil rights is something that occurred in the 50s and 60s, and that's something from long ago. It's not still taking place in courts, or people still aren't fighting to expand those definitions and expand those rights. But it's a very active practice of law, and it's still probably the most important practice in area of law that continues today.
In fact, one of the principal civil rights statutes, Section 1983, was originally enacted in 1866.
Wow.
And the veto of that section is what caused the Congress to impeach President Johnson. And 1983 is still a very vibrant piece of legislation when it comes to state action and the enforcement of civil rights against states.
Two acts that are paramount in terms of our history books, the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65. Their role in the civil rights movement, just a game changer, wasn't it?
Yes. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 came about as a direct result of the 1963 Birmingham demonstrations. And you'll see in the various sections of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the identical concerns which we were raising with the merchants in Birmingham and the city government. There's Title II of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which deals with public accommodations.
Right.
We were insisting as students on the right to use the white parks and white municipal facilities in Birmingham. That's now Section 2 of the 64 Civil Rights Act. We were insisting on the right to work in jobs other than the lowest paying jobs at places such as Pizitz and Parisians. Mm-hmm. That is now Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which guarantees equality of job treatment not only to women, not only to blacks, but to women and other national origins as well. And so we see in the 1964 Civil Rights Act, in my judgment, a direct reflection of what was going on in Birmingham, Alabama, and that law was designed to prevent those kinds of things from recurring, not only in Birmingham, but the rest of the nation as well. Mm-hmm. It was a game changer of major import.
Yeah. What civil rights issues present day concern you?
Well, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Yeah. There is a resurrection of measures that are designed, in my judgment, to oppress minority concerns, like, for example, the new restrictions on voting, the ID requirements, right, and those kinds of things which historically have minimized political participation by minorities in the American political system. Those things are still going on, and the difficulty is that what the Constitution means at any given point in history is only what 5 justices say that it means.
Right. Yeah. Time for us to head to our second break. Time is flying by. More time for you, though, to get your questions to us. You can call, text, or email those to us. Also, find the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch on Facebook and Twitter. You're watching The Attorneys, sponsored by the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch.
From all of us at the law firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch, we're glad to have you here with us every Sunday night on Alabama's 13. This week we're discussing civil rights. Some examples of civil rights that you might be familiar with are the freedom of speech, the right to vote, and the right to equality in all public places. There are two major civil rights acts of the 1960s, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Both acts were the result of hard work by individuals concerned about their civil rights. The U.S. President and Congress also participated in the passage of these important civil rights acts. In short, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed segregation, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 expanded the breadth of who can vote. Both changed our country forever. Over the years, some say that the U.S. Supreme Court has affected some civil rights protections, and that's where you come in. If you feel your civil rights have been affected, you may want to consult an attorney. Please remember your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis, Wright & Couch want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into our final segment of The Attorneys, along with Tyler Vail from the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch. We were joined by Honorable Judge U.W. Clemon. Judge, as we were heading to break, you were in the middle of a point that you wanted just to finish up. So go ahead, take your time.
The point is that the present Supreme Court has moved away from the usual principle of statutory construction, that is that laws that are designed to remedy a problem should be construed broadly, so that the remedial purposes can be achieved. This present Supreme Court is narrowly interpreting civil rights legislation. The best example that I know of is the Lily Ledbetter case, where Ms. Ledbetter was being paid unequal wages because of her sex in violation of Title VII, and the case was tried before me. A jury returned a $3 million verdict. The 11th Circuit and the United States Supreme Court set it aside, narrowly interpreting Title VII. Well, thank God we got a new president, and the Congress enacted the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which made it clear that Congress intended for that statute to be interpreted very broadly.
An historical case here that you were a part of. Another one has to do with the legendary football coach here in the state, Bear Bryant.
Yes, a year after I graduated from law school, black students at the University of Alabama came to my partner, Harvey Berg, and later to me, complaining that Coach Bryant was not recruiting black players. And I think it miffed them, particularly when Auburn signed up its first black player. And so we ended up suing Coach Bryant and the University of Alabama, asking the court to require them to allow black athletes to play on the University of Alabama's team. I took the coach's deposition. He was a most gracious man, one of the most gracious men I've ever met. But we were prepared to go forward with the lawsuit when all of a sudden there was this game at Legion Field between the University of Southern California, whose starting lineup was basically black, and the all-white University of Alabama's team. Coach Bryant didn't look so well that day.
That was a big loss.
And after that, he had a change of religion. And there was no need to pursue the lawsuit because he was doing all he could to get the most talented players, and that included blacks from that point on.
An eye-opening game for him. Our time, sadly, we have less than 2 minutes remaining. From you, a final comment here on the subject of civil rights?
Well, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and those who would benefit from the deprivation of their basic rights, basically God-given rights, should not be hesitant to go forward and file charges and file lawsuits to take advantage of the legislation that is in place to vindicate those rights.
Tyler, from you, a final thought on the night?
You know, the final thought that comes to mind on this show is kind of a phrase my dad always told me, is that you learn a whole lot more by listening than by talking. Yeah. And just sitting here with Judge Clemon tonight, it's really just been eye-opening and an educational experience. I hope everybody kind of had that same feeling. But civil rights is no joke. It is alive and well. It's a very important area of the law. There are still problems that go on every day in every workplace, just about in every company throughout the country. And so, you know, if you have questions, anything to do with civil rights, please get with an attorney. Civil rights is an interesting area. There's almost an administrative side as opposed to a legal side. You better know what you're doing. Call a lawyer, let them help you out.
Judge Clemon, look forward to the book. You need to get that book out. Yeah,
Thank you much.
You are a walking history book. Judge U.W. Clemon, Tyler, good to see you as well. A fascinating program tonight. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We thank you so much for being with us. A reminder as we wrap it up for the night, you can call, text, or email the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch. Find them on Facebook. Search Hollis, Wright & Couch, and on Twitter, Hollis_Wright. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch.